This week's reflection is: how did technology, scientific innovation, and globalization connect to the history of food and famine during the 20th century? Technology, scientific innovation, and globalization were all tightly intertwined in shaping the history of food and famine during this time. From reading Pilcher's chapter on guns and butter, you can see how far war accelerated technological change in food production. The military's demand for shelf-stable, portable, and mass-produced rations were what pushed governments and corporations to develop new preservation techniques, chemical additives, and industrial processing methods. After these were all After these wartime innovations all entered civilian food systems, everything changed from our diet to the landscape we live in today. At the same time, DeWall's reading shows that the famine in 20th century was rarely caused by natural scarcity alone, but through political decisions, conflict, and failures of systems. His analysis demonstrates that technology alone cannot prevent famine. It is political structures and global systems that determine who have access to food, which further backs my own opinion on how certain technology that is being pushed by many cannot prevent things from happening alone, specifically thinking about AI and how people have said that it will prevent predictable problems and fix inefficient systems. I mean, nevertheless, though, that's something outside of this class. But now, if you look at Pilcher's Chapter 11 on the Green Revolution, it talks about scientific innovation with global food systems, specifically thinking about the high yield seeds, fertilizers, pesticides, and irrigation technologies that were developed and then exported globally through the Cold War through development programs. These things increased the food production, yeah, but it also reduced famine risk, but it created dependency on chemicals, international funding, and global markets, which is where the podcast from the BBC comes in, with the farmers, scientists, and policymakers showing how global technology and technological transformations altered rural economies, environmental conditions, and social hierarchies. The scientific innovation didn't stay in the lab. Instead, it became embedded in global political agendas, economic systems, and our everyday lives, which is also where globalization is connected to this. From reading the OSU article about some of the issues faced in Africa, it is demonstrated that global food systems impacted them in many ways. Even though the Green Revolution increased global grain production, many African countries remained dependent on the imported staples, leaving them vulnerable to global price shocks. And the structural adjustment programs, they weakened state support for small farmers, while the global trade prioritized export crops over local food security. This is just goes to show how technological innovation can help globally, yeah, but it still leaves certain regions exposed to famine due to political and economic structures. All of these things intertwined, it shows how the 20th century food industry is a mix of intertwined forces. I mean, if you think about it right now, we are seeing with our change in government and economics, we are seeing different foods not being available, cost of food increasing. You're also looking at foods that we normally got for a smaller, low cost being significantly higher without any help from state governments or, adjustments for it. You're also seeing signs up everywhere from farmers asking them to not steal their land for solar panels. Personally, I just got back from overseas, and I don't know why they're stealing farmers' land for solar panels when a majority of the buildings and marketplaces overseas have them on top of things, like over top of areas where you park your car for a market, on top of grocery stores and stuff like that. There are other ways to use scientific innovation that can help without leaving other areas and regions exposed to things. That's my take on it.